What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats as well as some excellent attachment combinations for every gun in Modern Warfare 2. And in today's episode, we're going to be moving on to the STB 556. And starting it off as always, let's have a look at our damage profile, and with this we deal a base damage as well as a separate upper torso damage. And with this up close, we have a 3-shot kill potential as long as one of those shots hits the upper torso, the rest can hit anywhere else in the body. And then it's going to be a 4 to 6 shot kill beyond that. As for headshots, they're generally not really worth going for with this gun. Up close, as long as you're hitting an upper torso shot, it's going to be a 3-shot kill. And it's not like you can get a 2-shot kill to the head or anything, so I wouldn't worry too much about aiming for the head with this gun. But then let's get into our rate of fire, and this is 741 rounds per minute, which is fairly fast. I'd say that's moderately fast for an assault rifle. And what this means is our time to kill potential is incredibly fast up close at 162 milliseconds. This actually has the fastest time to kill potential out of any of the full auto assault rifles in the game. However, our range does limit this, but we'll look at that in just a second. First, I want to show you guys the bullet velocity, which is just standard for an assault rifle in this game at 590 meters per second. And now let's get into those ranges. And as we can see here, that 3-shot kill potential is only 15 meters. And keep in mind, the average maximum damage range for assault rifles in this game is about 26 meters. So this is actually noticeably worse in the range department compared to all of the other assault rifles out there. However, after that, from 15 meters to 27.5, this is where it's a guaranteed 4-shot kill no matter where in the body you shoot them. And then after that, we have a second 4-shot kill potential from 27.5 to 47 meters. But with this one, it is quite unforgiving. You have to hit every single shot to the upper torso, or perhaps you could mix a headshot in with a lower torso shot, for instance. But basically, if you aren't hitting upper torso, neck, or head there, it is going to take you 5 shots to kill in that range. And then beyond that, it's going to be a 6-shot kill unless you're hitting headshots. As for hardcore, also known as tier 1 in this game, we have a guaranteed 1-shot kill anywhere in the body out to that 15-meter range, which is excellent. And then with that second damage range, we can still get a 1-shot kill potential anywhere to the upper torso, neck, or head, but it'll be a 2-shot anywhere else. And then beyond that, it's a 2-shot kill no matter where you shoot them, even in the head. Next up, let's move on to our hipfire spread, and the STB actually does stand out in this area. It has the best hipfire spread in the assault rifle category by a noticeable margin as well, so that's definitely one area where this gun excels. And then let's have a look at our idle sway, which isn't very good, but it isn't for most of the guns in this game, to be honest. That's not really a big deal with this gun though, because it tends to excel more in close range encounters. But now let's have a look at our recoil, and surprisingly, this gun actually has very good recoil properties. As you can see there, the total vertical magnitude isn't very high. It actually caps out fairly early on, and you get a decent grouping with the first few shots fired, and then there's a bit of a jump after those first few shots. But if you're accurate with this gun and you get those first shots on target consistently, recoil generally shouldn't be a huge issue for you. Now, let's move on to our handling stats, and this is where the STB really starts to excel. Our aim down sight time is quite good for an assault rifle at 240 milliseconds, but not really an outlier by any means. However, this is where we get into our sprint to fire time, which is insanely fast with this gun. Not only is this faster than every assault rifle in the game by a very noticeable margin, it's actually faster than every single SMG in the game as well. Our standard sprint out time is just 83 milliseconds, and our tactical sprint out time is 158 milliseconds. So with this gun, you really don't have to worry too much about being caught sprinting. You can just snap out a sprint almost instantly and get those shots on target. After that though, let's have a look at our reload add time, and this is actually bang on average for an assault rifle at 1.53 seconds. And with that, we can finally move into our mobility stats, and the STB 556 is a little bit below average for assault rifles across the board when it comes to movement speeds. But even though it's below average, it's not like significantly below average. I wouldn't say this is a really slow moving gun by any means. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for the base stats of this gun. However, we've actually got a few interesting attachments on this. We have our barrel attachments, of course, which I always cover in these gun guides. But more importantly, there's an interesting magazine on this that locks the gun into semi-auto, but it increases our damage. And I do want to break that down in great detail after we cover the barrels first. And with the barrels, let's start this off with our range changes. And as we can see here, 4 out of the 6 barrels will increase our ranges and none of them decrease our range, so that's great. And you can see the individual impacts there. The best one for ranges is going to be that 24.4-inch Bruin S620 barrel with a 30% increase to our range, which is really nice to see, especially since the default ranges aren't very good on this gun. But after that, let's have a look at how these barrels impact our recoil, and you can see the various impacts there. The first barrel especially really cuts down on that vertical magnitude, and it gives us quite a nice recoil pattern. Whereas you look further to the right side of the graphs here, you can see that 16.5-inch Bruin barrel really increases that initial recoil, and it's not super viable for stretching ranges out at all. But finally, for the barrel stats, let's have a look at how these barrels impact our aim down sight time. Keep in mind, these are all hand-tested values. And it's worth noting, there are 3 barrels here that basically have their aim down sight time destroyed. That's the first barrel with the integrated suppressor, which, by the way, I did do the testing on that. It has the exact same bug as all the other suppressors in the game, where if you fire it, it will disable your ghost perk. But with that, it also destroys our aim down sight speed. It's now 384 milliseconds. The second barrel, that FTAC barrel, that one also kills our aim down sight speed. And then finally, that 24.4-inch Bruin barrel that gives us a 30% boost to our damage range. Again, it pretty much destroys our aim down sight time, and we're now going to be aiming in 350 milliseconds, which is more along the lines of an LMG. So there we go, those are the barrel attachments, and I'd be very careful with your choices there, especially looking at those aim down sight times. And with that, we can now move on to the one really unique magazine attachment, and this is the single tap mod. Now with this, we now only get a 10-round magazine instead of a 30-round mag, and also we are locked into semi-auto. There's no way of firing this full auto. However, it does give us a damage boost, which they don't really clearly state in the description or the pros and cons here. They just say high grain ammunition. But I did all the testing with this. You can see all the damage values there. And it is interesting to note that up close, it'll be a 2-shot kill anywhere in the torso, even lower torso. It's a 2-shot kill, which is great. But if you're hitting limbs, it won't be a 2-shot kill. And it's also worth noting, for whatever reason, on the enemy character's left thigh, you're dealing roughly 40% less damage. I don't know why that's the case. There's just a weird bugged out hitbox right there. So try not to shoot them in the left thigh if you can avoid it. But after that, it looks like our rate of fire cap is 411 rounds per minute, which means with a 2-shot kill up close, our time to kill potential is 146 milliseconds, which is faster than our time to kill potential with full auto when not using this mod. But it does require you to have at least a half-decent trigger finger to hit that rate of fire cap. It's also worth noting that while our damage has changed, the range drop-off points are exactly the same with this single tap mod, so you guys can see that right there. Then when it comes to our handling stats, it does slightly improve our aim down sight time and even our sprint out time, but only by a very small margin. It's likely not even really going to be noticeable for you. And then our base movement speed is also improved by just about 3%, and that's actually quite noticeable when we're talking about movement speed. But then finally, with the single tap mod, I did want to show you the recoil here. And if you are hitting that maximum fire rate cap, you may end up seeing the odd jump here or there with a bullet. You can see on that right recoil pattern in particular, there's definitely a jump between the first and second shot. So it is something to be aware of. Outside of that, though, it is quite accurate. Now, when it comes to this, though, at the end of the day, I still think full auto is just going to be the better, more versatile option for most people out there. But if you're somebody that really likes semi-autos and you really excel with it, and you also like being aggressive, this will be a really interesting choice for you to try out, and you may have a lot of fun with it. But now that we have all the important stats out of the way, let's move on to some excellent attachment combinations I've got for you guys. And the first one I want to share with you is my all-arounder sort of a build, although with the inherent stats of this gun, this is more of an aggressive all-around setup. Generally speaking, you naturally want to take advantage of this gun's strengths, which are close ranges and fast sprint out time. So with this, we're using the VLK 7mW laser. This one's equivalent to the OLEV laser. For some reason, it just has a different name on this particular gun. But this one helps with our aim down sight speed, aiming stability, and sprint to fire speed. For our muzzle, I found going with vertical recoil control is best with this particular setup to control those initial shots especially. So this is going to be using the X10 ported 290 muzzle. Then for our underbarrel, we've got the FSS Shark Fin, which just helps with aiming stability and no downsides. We've got armor-piercing rounds on there, so we can punch through cover a little bit more effectively. And then finally with this, we're using the FTAC C11 riser. And as you can see here, our recoil is improved over the base recoil, so we can actually handle fights out to a bit of a longer distance. Our aim down sight speed ends up balancing out in such a way that it's a little bit slower than the base aim down sight speed, but it is still a very competitive speed for aiming down sight. And as a result, when you factor in all the stats of this gun, that just makes it a good, aggressive, all-around sort of a build. You can stretch your range out a little bit with it, but it's still generally going to excel at running around and challenging people in close quarter situations. As for the next build I wanted to share for you guys, this is a Hipfire build, because with the extremely fast sprint out time and the great time to kill at close ranges, that just immediately made me think that this is going to excel with a Hipfire build, and it does. So with this, we're using the Point G3P laser, and this one gives us the tightest possible hipfire spread, and it is a very tight hipfire spread, by the way, although you do have to be aware that the laser is visible from the hip. Now, something I didn't point out in my laser video is with these lasers, as long as you're sprinting, that laser is going to be like up in the air. That's not going to be projecting in front of you and announcing that you're about to come around a corner. And with this gun, you can afford to sprint into gunfights oftentimes, so I would recommend treating the gun that way. On top of that, we have a Merc foregrip, which helps with our hipfire. We've got the Bruin S901 barrel. This one is mainly just to improve our mobility a bit. It hurts our recoil control, but we're firing from the hip most of the time anyway, so that doesn't really matter. We've once again got that FTAC C11 riser, and we're using the Bruin 0900 grip, which does help with sprint to fire and aim down sight speed. And overall with this, our aim down sight speed is a little on the slower side, but again, this is a hipfire build, so it's not like you should be aiming down sight too often, although if you are stretching the range out, of course, you can still aim down sight with this gun. Our hipfire diameter is reduced by 25%, which means we have an amazing hipfire spread. Our sprint out time is even a little bit faster than the base sprint out time at 75 milliseconds, which is extremely fast. And honestly, our recoil isn't that bad considering I didn't really build this for recoil. So, well, you should be treating this as a hipfire build, and I still wouldn't challenge people at like cross map ranges. You can still aim down sight with this gun and be reasonably effective in those mid-range situations. And with that, that's finally going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the STB 556. As for my thoughts on this gun, I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite guns in the game right now because I like having more of an aggressive playstyle typically, and this is just so well suited to that. Honestly, this is better than a lot of the SMGs at being an SMG, which is insane. So if you guys haven't really given this an honest shot yet, please do. I think you're really going to like it if you like to be aggressive and play up close and personal. However, it is quite balanced as well. It's limited at longer ranges. You don't want to be challenging people across the map with this gun too often, and that's why I really like it overall. Now, of course, that is just my opinion on this. I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. What are you guys thinking about the STB so far? Do you really like the fact that it has an insane sprint out time, or do you think that should be kept in check to some degree? And just let me know any other thoughts you might have about this gun. Now, if you guys have missed any of the previous episodes, I've already covered a good chunk of the assault rifles. We're working our way through these pretty quickly. I will, of course, leave a link to the playlist down below. And just keep in mind, I'm going to start this off with assault rifles, then SMGs, and then I'm going to start branching into some of the other categories. I know a lot of you guys have your own requests, but that's just the way I decided to handle it this time around. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.